Hello and welcome to Biz Daily. I'm John Jordan. So what we're talking about today is the rise of Instagram. Obviously not the rise of Instagram, we all know Instagram has risen a long time ago. So Instagram is the photo sharing platform bought by Facebook and now has about 300 million users, so pretty big platform, happily sharing videos and photos. Videos, we all know now, on kind of mobile platforms are becoming an increasing thing that people are trying to share. So Facebook is trying to do more video stuff. Instagram, that was set up for doing photos, still predominantly photos really, but they're looking to do more video stuff. So why are we saying the rise of Instagram? So what we've kind of seen, and it's been something that's kind of happening since about June, that Facebook has been opening up Instagram to advertisers. So we kind of forget sometimes kind of how these things happen, but it wasn't that long ago when people were saying Facebook, wow, it's kind of a nice idea, but it's probably peaked, isn't it? It's kind of hasn't really got mobile, and you know, how many times do you want to kind of share what your kind of cat's done, or your holiday photos and all this kind of stuff. So there was a skepticism around Facebook and what its future was going to be, and was it had been too highly valued and all this kind of stuff. And even within Facebook, you didn't really get a strong vision for what they were up to. I mean, they kind of had a few kind of technological kind of hiccups and things they announced didn't happen, and all this kind of stuff with different technology platforms that didn't really come through, and obviously gaming dropped off kind of fairly quickly, kind of 2-3 years ago. And what actually kind of rescued Facebook in terms of its business model, at least, was mobile games. So not gaming on Facebook, but mobile games. So Facebook now makes a large proportion of its money from mobile game developers advertising mobile games on Facebook. So it's not just that. Obviously people are advertising within Facebook for their own pages, and app developers are also advertising on Facebook. But the majority of mobile app and game development advertising is about games, because the game guys, it's like the Supercells, the EAs, the Machine Zones, the Kings, they have a lot of money, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars a year that they're generating, and probably, you know, roughly about 30% of that, maybe more for some companies, maybe a bit less for others, but about 30% of that goes back into marketing, which in many cases is user acquisition advertising on Facebook. So Facebook kind of arose from nowhere really, and suddenly became the big place where people advertise mobile games. And that's partly because obviously a lot of people use Facebook. So, you know, a week ago Facebook announced that it had 1 billion concurrent users in one day. It's most ever. 1 billion, that's whatever is that, a seventh of the world's population used Facebook within one day, so it's got massive reach. But also the other interesting thing is, of course, as soon as you kind of have networks that are underpinned by sociality, so I can see what my friends like, so that's, for advertisers, that's really powerful. So things like, you know, knowing obviously the gender, the age, the kind of location, kind of interest and stuff, that's pretty powerful as well. But as soon as you kind of add that to the social groups that you're linked to, that becomes really kind of rich targeting information for the kind of games that you like. So the kind of games that I'll be advertised on Facebook will be pretty different to the ones you'll be advertised, unless you're kind of a similar kind of marketing mix to me. So that's kind of where Facebook has become massively successful, and now it's starting. I mean, it's still very in the early stages, but now Facebook is starting to open up Instagram to a similar kind of situation. So the interesting thing, the news that kind of has sparked me talking about this today, is a couple of companies have announced that they're now allowed officially as being their Facebook, called Facebook, the Facebook mobile measurement partners, so that they're allowed to kind of provide data for advertisers. There's a few companies who are allowed to do that. It's a kind of tightly regulated market, but they're now allowed to offer that for Instagram. So that if you're advertising, if you're kind of some advertising platforms, or it's kind of analytics platforms really, you can now get this rich data about who's interacting with your ads and all this kind of stuff, which is really what people need to start spending a lot of money. If you're starting to spend millions of dollars advertising your games or apps or whatever, you really want to know, you know, how that money is being spent, where it's being spent in the world, what's the result of spending that money. Are people clicking on the ads? Are people clicking on the ads and not downloading the game? You know, what's going to happen? So we're starting to see that data become available, and that's really when we'll start to see advertisers spending a lot of money. So but the really interesting thing was it's always kind of, you always kind of say within, you know, generals always fight the next war, the next war, like they kind of, from the lessons they learned from the last war. And I kind of wondered a little bit with Instagram whether people are just seeing Facebook blew up in this magical way, and you know, people who got into Facebook early, Facebook advertising early, before people understood the power of it, basically got a lot of very cheap installs of their games, and that was very powerful, and that could, you know, really generate businesses and, you know, drive a lot of growth. So obviously no one wants to be caught out if a similar gold mine for user acquisition arises, which Instagram certainly might be. But Instagram is certainly a very different type of platform, at least from my point of view. So Instagram is one that's not as big, it's 300 million users, not the over a billion, so that's a third scale difference there. And also it seems to me it's much more female oriented. So there was this whole thing with Facebook where, you know, people's parents were on it, and then so the younger generation, teenagers, didn't really want to get on Facebook because their parents were on it. It wasn't cool anymore, so they were much more using mobile messaging platforms. And Instagram seemed to fall into that thing where you kind of see a lot of teenagers using it, and a lot of kind of female kind of people, particularly associated with kind of fashion. And if you look at the people who the most followed on Instagram, it's very much the kind of the female fashion celebrity musicians, singers, or, you know, I guess what we call kind of actresses, models, kind of that kind of type of person, and they're showing off their fabulous lifestyle, or their nails, or their funny cute dog, or all that kind of stuff. So these people certainly will play games. They will play a certain type of game, and it kind of was interesting today because I was just flicking through Instagram. I'm really not a power user of Instagram at all, but I'm kind of trying to understand how it works a little bit. And the advert I saw was for Game of War. So obviously that may be because it knew that I wasn't a 19-year-old girl. I was a rather older man who potentially was going to be interested. I follow a few game companies on there, so maybe that's kind of how it triggered a Game of War advert. But it was very interesting that for most Instagram users, Game of War, a fairly hardcore, kind of light graphical, it's almost like a management kind of resource game. You know, in a sense how you play the meta game for months and months and months. The people who are very powerful kind of players in the game are very hardcore in a very non-casual way, and that's not really what's going to work for Instagram. So I think the thing with Instagram, it's very early stages yet. People are going to start advertising using the data and kind of finessing how much they're going to spend, because obviously now maybe people will take some of their Facebook spend and put it in Instagram. Maybe people will take some of their, you know, other types of spending through different channels and try it in Instagram and see what works. But you'd kind of imagine the companies that are going to do well out of Instagram are perhaps the companies like King, who have a lot of kind of casual, more female friendly at least games, and maybe Zynga, who have a certain number of that as well. And kind of maybe the oddities will be, there'll be kind of casino games might work quite well on there because they tend to have a more kind of 50-50 male split. Games you would imagine will not work so well being advertised on Instagram are the Clash of Clans, are the racing games, are the shooting games, are the MOBAs, that kind of stuff. But we have to see. At the moment, no one knows. The data's only, the kind of data platforms are only just been opened. So we'll have to wait for a couple of months to see if Instagram is the new gold mine for mobile user acquisition, or maybe it's just a gold mine. Maybe it's a silver mine for certain types of mobile game. We'll have to find out. Anyway, come back tomorrow and we'll see what the news is then. See you then.